What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Endless TBR. My name is Christian, and this is my YouTube channel where I love to talk about books. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to click on this video, where I'm going to talk about all of the books that I read in January of 2026 and rank them in order from my least favorite to my favorite. Right off the bat, if I get really scratchy at all during this video, I'm sick again. This month I've just been getting sick over and over, which has not been great for reading. I've been unconscious a lot this month. I started out the month really strong. I read a lot of books. I read 7 books before like my mid-month reading update video, and since that video, I've only finished 3 books. I did have school starting, so a couple added distractions in there. And then once again, I got sick recently, so not the best end of the month as far as reading goes. But luckily, I had a really strong start, and I was still able to knock out 10 books. I read 6 physical books, 1 book on my Kindle, and then I finished 3 audiobooks as well. So a total of 10 books. And like I always like to do at the end of every month, I like to go back, revisit them, and just rank them in order from my least favorite to my favorite, and just talk a little bit about each of them. Some of these books I've covered quite a bit in my last 2 videos where I talked about my reading updates. Since I had a stronger start, there's only been 3 books since my mid-month reading update that I haven't talked about at all. So some of this will be a little repetitive, but I'm still going to go through each of these books and just briefly cover each of them. So let's get into it. Let's rank them. Coming in at number 10th place, my least favorite book that I read this month, and no surprise if you've watched a couple of my videos previously, it is The Bad Weather Friend by Dean Koontz. This was my first Dean Koontz book that I've ever read, and it was a blind pickup. I just searched in the Kindle search bar and grabbed the first one that popped up at the top by that author. And I learned that it was a really poor choice, and I'm definitely going to give him another shot and read some of his other books that are more highly rated. This was just a really bizarre book. I don't usually rank books too low. Like, generally, I typically enjoy most things that I read, but this one I just found myself so many times throughout the story being like, what is the purpose behind this book? It All of the dialogue was just so bizarre and completely unrealistic, and I think it was supposed to be written like it was supposed to be humorous, and there were very few times when I got a chuckle out of the read at all. There's one character named Spike. He is a fictional creature called a Craggle, and he did get a laugh out of me a couple times, but all of the human characters I just felt so flat and unrealistic and super bizarre. And overall, the theme of the book and the point of the story was pretty pointless. I saw a review on Goodreads that I really liked about this book, and it was one word, and it was just pointless. And I was like, yeah, that kind of sums up how I feel about this book as well. So I feel bad because I think a lot of people like Dean Koontz, and like I said, I'm going to give him another shot for sure. But this book I just didn't care for at all, and I was pretty happy when it was over. I don't DNF books, but I came close to considering it on this one, but I still finished it. So that is The Bad Weather Friend. Coming in at number 9 is another audiobook that I listened to. It is The House Beyond the Dunes by Mary Burton. This was another blind pickup that I did. I didn't have a great track record with blind pickups this month. Um, I was looking for an audiobook to read. I just went into Kindle and I went into the most popular section and just grabbed the first one that stuck out to me. And this book isn't nearly as bad as The Bad Weather Friend. There's a significant jump up from that book to this book. But I gave it a 3 stars. It had a very strong start, and I thought it had a very strong finish, like there's an interesting twist at the end that I genuinely could not have anticipated, but the middle section of this book was just so repetitive and dull that I started to lose interest. And, when I listen to audiobooks, I'm usually pretty locked in because you have, the voice and everything like that. There's like the performative aspect of it, but I found my mind was wandering throughout like pretty much the middle like 70% of this book because it was just the story focuses around this lady. Her name is Lane, and she is dating this guy named Kyle. They've been together for 3 weeks. She goes with him for the first time to like his cabin getaway, and she wakes up in the hospital. Apparently, the two of them fell down the stairs, and Kyle died in the process. And she has head trauma and can't remember what happened in that incident. And there's certain hints that are alleging that she may have been involved in the accident, and so she's trying to uncover like the secret of what went on and why her boyfriend died. And like I said, not a bad ending, but the journey to get there was just so repetitive, and she basically keeps having opportunities to leave this house that she's stuck at. She ended up staying at the house where her boyfriend died, and she keeps having these opportunities to leave, and she doesn't. And the whole book, I was like, just leave, just get out of there. And yeah, so questionable decisions from the main character's perspective. But yeah, so that is the House Beyond the Dunes by Mary Burton. Like I said, not horrible, but just I feel like it could have been a good 100 pages shorter, and it would have been perfectly fine. So that is my number 9 book of the month. My number 8 book of the month, we have my first physical book here, and this is going to be The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Um, if you're a fan of classics, you're probably going to hate me for putting this low compared to some other books here. And once again, this one is what I consider a significant step up from the previous two books that I talked about. The Great Gatsby is obviously a classic, and it was by no means a bad book. It just wasn't the most exciting to read. The saving grace of this book is it's like 150 pages long or 175. It's super short. Um, and there were a couple moments that where the drama in this book was entertaining, but this book is more about what the themes stand for and the symbolism behind it. And I think that's a big reason why it's become such a classic that's been passed on throughout all the decades since it was written. So as far as the book goes, I kind of went into it not expecting to like it very much. So I was surprised that I walked away with getting a decent amount of entertainment value out of it. And when you do the research and you look at the themes that F. Scott Fitzgerald was trying to write about, it's certainly an impressive book that he was able to fit so much meaning into such a short story. But when you're spoiled by modern writing of the action of sci-fi and fantasy and horror, and then you read a book like The Great Gatsby, there's I think there's a tendency to be a little bored because again, it's not the most thrilling story. It's a pretty basic plot, but I did enjoy it more than I thought. And like I said, this is a significant step up from the last two books that I talked about in this video. So that is coming at number 8. Coming in at number 7 is going to be Ink Spell by Cornelia Funke. Funke. I actually just started Ink Death this morning, and I'm really liking it so far. I'm like 50 pages in, but I wanted to jump into it right when I finished Ink Spell, but unfortunately, I had some other books that I wanted to read first. Not unfortunately, but I had other books that I wanted to read first. But Inkspell I thought was a really solid follow-up to Inkheart. I liked it better than the original story in almost every single way, except for the villain. I thought the villain of this one was a little weaker, but I love the fact that in this book we finally get to go into the ink world. It just felt so much more magical, and it had those more elements of fantasy that I was expecting to experience in the first book, but didn't quite get to. And I was really glad that we finally got into the Ink world and we got to see all those things that were referenced by characters like Dustfinger and Capricorn in the first book. And I ended up finishing this book and really enjoying it. I think both of the Inkworld books have both been a little long. These books are not small. These are like solid 600-page books. Ink Death is like 650. This one's about 625. So it's quite a long read, and there are a couple moments in both Inkheart and Inkspell where it lost my interest just for a little bit, but never for extended periods of time. Overall, I would say it's a very fun adventure, and I think this is a great book for younger readers, which is what this series is targeted at. So that is Inkspell, and yeah, it was a good time. Next up, we have coming in at number 6, Navigators of Dune. This is the book that I was currently reading in my last video, and I finished it. That is another Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson trilogy down. Again, these books are so chonky, like 600 pages each. So between Sisterhood, Mentats of Dune, and Navigators of Dune, this is like a 1,800 page trilogy. My overall thoughts about this one are that I think the Schools of Dune trilogy is much better than the Legends of Dune trilogy. It feels much more focused, and it felt like all of the plot points actually interwove together pretty significantly. My big gripe with the Legends of Dune trilogy is that it felt like so many plot points, especially all the stuff on Arrakis, was just unnecessary. And when it came to this trilogy, I felt like 90% of it was pretty necessary to the overall story. The only aspect of this trilogy that by the end I was kind of like, why is this still in these books is the side plot with Vori and Atreides. I can see why that side plot was important to Sisterhood of Dune because the main character of that book is Valia Harkonnen, and the Harkonnen and Atreides bloodline and story kind of coexist together. But by the end of this book, like all the stuff is going down with this like three-way battle between the Imperium, the Butlerians, and the Venhold Spacing Guild, and you have this massive, you know, galaxy-altering conflict that's happening, and then we have kind of a side cut to Vorian Atreides and his like great great grandson just going around doing stuff. So that aspect felt, a little unnecessary, but overall, I would say this trilogy was much stronger. By the time I got to the Battle of Corrin in the last trilogy, I was so ready to be done with that time period, and I definitely did not feel that way with Navigators of Dune. I finished this one being like, you know what? I'm ready to jump into the House trilogy. I think that's the next set of books that I'm going to buy here coming up soon because this was a really solid trilogy. Consistent is the word I would use for it. Across Sisterhood, Mentats, and Navigators, a very consistent trilogy of fun, popcorny sci-fi adventures. So that is Navigators of Dune right there. Let's see. Coming in at number 5, we got Angels and Demons by Dan Brown. This was such a fun read. This is one that I remember loving when I was back in like high school, and I really wanted to revisit the Robert Langdon stuff and reread all of those books. And um, so I decided to start in chronological order, not in publication order, and begin with Angels and Demons. And this is just a straight up super fun adventure. It follows this guy named Robert Langdon. He is a Harvard symbologist, and he's very, very good at his job. He's very smart. He knows everything that you can know about ancient religions and sects and all that stuff. And so he gets called upon when there is a group that is identifying themselves as the Illuminati, and they are threatening the papal conclave. The pope has just passed away, and so all of the cardinals have convened to elect the new pope. And there's this like Illuminati identifying threat that is threatening all of the Vatican City and all of the cardinals and the Pope elects. So Robert Langdon has to go in and figure out what's going on and try to save all these people. And while it's not the most in-depth character work that I've seen, like I can certainly see where somebody would look at this book and look at the story and say that Robert Langdon is like a completely one-dimensional character. I would agree with that, but this book I feel like is more about the adrenaline and the action and the mystery of trying to get from point A to point B to point C when it comes to this whole mystery. So I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I'm very excited. I plan on reading the Da Vinci Code in February because I just had a really good time with this one. And it definitely it made me think back to those high school years when I first started reading Dan Brown stuff and reminded me of why I like him so much. So that is Angels and Demons. Coming in at number 4, we have the book that I read on Kindle. It is called The Child Thief by Brahm. This is my first book that I've ever read by this author, but he is a favorite of my fiance's. She adores him. And so this month in the book club I'm in with her, she chose this book, and it was a really great time. It is a dark and gritty take on the Peter Pan story, where basically you have Peter, they don't call him Peter Pan, they just call him Peter, but Peter is going into the real world and he is searching for children that are in terrible situations. Maybe they're homeless, maybe they're abused, all kinds of whatever shitty situation they find themselves in. And he is basically abducting them. Like he's convincing them to come with him, but he's basically abducting them back to Avalon, which is the version of Neverland in this story, because Peter is trying to raise an army to fight back against these guys called the Flesh Eaters, who are essentially the pirates from the Peter Pan story that we know. And there's this massive battle for Avalon that is building up because the Flesh Eaters are starting to just destroy and decimate the land. So it was a very good, very surprising, uh, very surprising story. From the first chapter, you're like, this is not the Peter Pan that I've grown up knowing from the Disney movies. It is quite brutal, quite graphic and violent, and it doesn't hold back on themes when it comes to like abuse and stuff like that. So if that sounds interesting to you, I think you would probably like the story. Like I said, it was once you get past that shock value, it is a really solid story. There's a lot of great characters in here, and it explores a lot of themes about like controlling people and what is right and wrong, like should you blindly follow people that are your leaders and stuff like that. So a lot of great themes. I really enjoyed the book a lot, and I was not expecting just how crazy it would be. When my fiance told me, she was like, "Yeah, it's like a take on the Peter Pan story, but just more actiony." I was like, "This isn't just actiony. This is this is pretty brutal." So it was very fun, and I want to check out more of Brahms stories for sure. So that is The Child Thief, coming in at number 4. Coming in at number 3 is You Killed Me First by John Mars. John Mars is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. I've read 3 of his books now, with You Killed Me First being my third of his, and he is 3 for 3 when it comes to 5-star books. I love this book just like I've loved the other 2 books that I've read by him. I think You Killed Me First is probably my least favorite of the 3, but not by a wide margin by any means. Like, still a solid 5-star book. And it's one of those books, as I mentioned before, I can't really say much about. Like, when you start to go into plot points a little bit too much, it can easily spoil a lot about this book. But it's really about these three ladies who live next to each other. They're neighbors, and it's about their relationship. And they're really mean to each other and really horrible towards each other. And at the beginning of the book, you're like, why are they all so terrible towards each other? And then as the book carries on, you start to realize that their pasts are interwoven a lot more than you think they would be, and you start to get to the realization of why these ladies hate each other so much and why they're always trying to undercut each other. So, and their husbands are involved too. There's a lot of drama going on there with each of their individual relationships, and it just culminates in this massive massive moment towards the end of the book, just like John Mars does so well, where all these questions that you had building up throughout the course of this like 8-hour journey just all start to cascade at once. And it's highly entertaining. It's great stuff. I think John Mars is one of my favorite authors when it comes to finally revealing those big twists. And with him, it's never just like a twist. It's never one thing. It's like, and this, and this, and this, and this. And it feels like it never stops. The last 30% of like each of his books that I've read by him have just been shock after shock. And You Killed Me First is no exception to that. So I love this book. It's hard to imagine that this is in third place, that there's 2 books that I loved more when all I have to say is good things about it. But really, it is great. And if you haven't read anything by John Mars, I highly recommend it. Like I said, The Good Samaritan was one of my favorite books from 2025, and that's a great one to check out too if you've not read him before. So that is number 3. Coming in at number 2, the last 2 books here, it was really tough for me to decide between. But for number 2, I ended up going with this book, The Sorrow Stones by Felix Blackwell. Felix Blackwell is one of my favorite horror writers of all time. I just discovered and started reading him last year in 2025. This is only his 5th book, I believe. He doesn't have many books out there, but honestly, every single book that he's written, I love so much, and this is no exception. The Sorrow Stones is a story about this kid named Cole, and through mysterious circumstances, he keeps obtaining these like little sculptures of animals, like a monkey, a turtle, a raven, stuff like that. And he finds that each of these stones negatively impacts the people that he loves in his life by leeching something from them. And they're these how do I describe it? These stones are almost like parasites for the soul in a way, and he is just addicted to having these stones. He can't get rid of them, even though he knows the bad things that they're doing to the people around him. And it's really just a story about the downfall of this poor kid's life. Like, the thing about Felix Blackwell, if you've not read him before, the thing that I like about his writing is just he's so good at capturing hopelessness. Like, all of his characters and all of his stories are in these situations where everything is going wrong for them constantly, and you just feel so bad and anxious for all of his main characters. And I would say this story, more than any of the other books I've read by him, captures that the best. This is like a 300-page journey of this main character Cole's life just going completely downhill. And I'll give you a forewarning, there's nothing happy or nice or satisfying that happens in this story. It is just misery. If you like reading that stuff, it's very. I always say that Blackwell is very Lovecraftian, in the fact that Lovecraft was the same, in that all of his stories are just about these massive horrors that are just decimating humans and there's not really any hope. Oh, my cat's right here. I don't know if she's gonna poke in the video, but that is Blackwell's writing, and I don't want to talk about the book any more than that. But it really is just a a crazy read. Stay away from my camera. What are you doing? Anyway, but yeah, that is Felix Blackwell's The Sorrow Stones, and that is my number 2 read of the month. And then coming in at number 1, a book that I praised a lot in my last video, but it is The Dead Zone by Stephen King. I really, really love this book. In my journey to read Stephen King in publication order, I picked this one up. This was the next one that I had to read. I'd never heard of it before. I knew nothing about the story going into it. I'd never really seen this one on people's top Stephen King lists before, so I kind of went into it with this impression that it wasn't going to be very, very good. But I was dead wrong. I love this book so much. It is the story of this guy named Johnny. He has an injury when he's a kid that allows him to get these premonitions about people. That ability is dialed up to 11 when he's in a car accident as an adult, and now he is just a full-blown psychic. When he makes bodily contact with somebody, touches their hand or something like that, he gets a vision about something in their future, usually involving something tragic. And it is this story about him battling with himself and battling with his parents and the people that he loves and the media, as he's trying to do good in the world while everybody else is just thinking he's either like the next coming of God or this con man or whatever. And he is going back and forth with himself about the validity of his own experiences. And I just found it to be a very, very compelling read. I thought Johnny Smith was an excellent main character. And as I said before, the ending of this book left me very emotional. I think Stephen King nailed this ending. It is close to up there with the ending of 11/22/63 for me, where I just found it to be the perfect ending. I couldn't imagine this book ending in any other way. And yeah, I truly loved it. I could see myself rereading this book very soon because as soon as I finished it, I was like, man, I want to go back to the beginning, knowing all that I know and experience this story again. So that is The Dead Zone by Stephen King. If you're a King fan and you haven't read this one because maybe you haven't heard much about it, I definitely recommend checking it out because it's really great. It's definitely a slow burn. The first, you know, you really don't get into the main conflict of the story until very close to the end. Like I'd say within the last 100 pages or so, but it's worth it because all that buildup is. Sorry, my cat is still just hi. Here, hold on. Let me see if I can get her in the video real quick. She doesn't like being held very much, but here she is. She's just been right here on the bed the entire time, like staring at my camera, like she's gonna take a swipe at it and knock it over. And that's why I've been like looking back and forth at her. But anyway, Stephen King's The Dead Zone. This is my favorite book of the month that I read in January of 2026. So that's everything I read in 2026. Not in 2026, in January of 2026. Thank you so much for sticking through this video and stay tuned because shortly I'll talk about the books that I'm reading in February. So y'all have a beautiful rest of your day. Stay warm out there. It's still very cold outside. As you can see, I'm super bundled up. I'm down in Florida and I'm not used to it. We had a day yesterday where it was 25 degrees outside, and that's like apocalyptic levels of cold. We had ice in our lawn out here, which is not normal at all. So yeah, stay warm out there. Y'all have a great rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next video. See ya.